In the previous section, we have seen the importance of choosing the right words. Choosing appropriate words can make our messages more impactful and powerful. Choosing the right set of words and putting them together in a correct manner will help us form correct sentences. Sentence construction can be seen as a four-stage process. Number one, we collect all the information. Number two, you plan what you want to write. After you collect all the information, we plan to put it together. Number three, once that planning has been done of what all is to be put in the sentence, we construct our sentence. Lastly, number four, we connect the sentences. Sentences are generally written to be connected together to form a paragraph later on. Hence, we must construct our sentences properly so that they can be connected more easily in the end. Let's begin with stage one, which is collect all the information. That's almost commonsensical because when we need to frame a sentence, we must know what all information do we want to convey through that sentence. Let's understand this idea through a simple example of an email that does not convey information very properly. So it says, "Dear Vipul, the new computers have been supplied and are giving some problems, though some of them are working fine too." Now if you note the usage of the word "some" here twice, "some" is a very ambiguous word. So what problems are they giving is not clear, and how many are working fine too, even that is not clear. So the information has not been put together properly. The second sentence says, "The operators are complaining about the lack of training, though some training has already been given." Now what lack of training are they complaining about is not clear, and secondly, what training has already been given, even that is not made clear. The third sentence reads, "The technical performance of the machines has yet to be determined." So even that information is not available, that what is the technical performance level of these machines right now. So by and large, this whole email is flawed because in every sentence, the information is not put properly. There is only vague information at best, which is not required. So by and large, this email is useless. So we must understand from this email that when you write a sentence, you must have proper information with you that is extremely clear and non-ambiguous so that it is of some value to the reader. Similarly, if you look at these two messages, in the first one, the sentences are half-baked because they do not provide much information. In the second one, however, the sentences provide enough information to make things very clear to the reader. The second stage is planning what you want to write. Once we have all the information to write a sentence, we must also plan properly where do you put what information. For example, suppose we need to say that the company lost money last year and the loss occurred despite the company having record sales. If we say that although the company enjoyed record sales last year, it lost money, the emphasis is on the lost money and the record sales takes a backseat. On the other hand, if we say the company enjoyed record sales last year, although it lost money, the record sales is now the primary thing. It is the more important subject in the sentence. So just by putting two different fragments or two different parts of a sentence at different places, we change what we need to emphasize in a given sentence. So planning what you want to write does not only involve putting different parts at the right place, it also subsumes that you have to plan the tone and texture of your sentences, which not only includes the kind of words that you want to use, but also includes the kind of writing mechanics that you want to employ. I'm taking an example here of Sujit, who is the head of enterprise development in a company. He has received a lot of complaints regarding poor customer service from his clients. So when he drafts a letter to his employees or managers, he writes this kind of a letter. You can pause it and read it fully. The letter says the clients of the ED team have been complaining of poor customer service. They have mentioned in a recent survey that one of the reasons for their discontinuation of services with our company is poor services from the managers. Now guys, if you look at this whole the way sentences have been formed, they don't look authoritative at all. When this fellow says the clients of the ED team have been complaining, he's using passive voice, have been complaining. It is better to say I have received complaints, because that looks more authoritative. Similarly, he says they have mentioned in a recent survey. So generally in this whole letter, the tone is not one of authority. It is more friendly, and generally it lacks any kind of punch that is required from a head who is anguished because of so many complaints. This is another example now of a better letter that Sujit could have written. It is more authoritative. Just go through it once altogether again by pausing or maybe looking at the slides that you have also. The idea is, guys, we must make sure that our sentences that we construct must be suited to the purpose that we want them to serve. After clear-cut planning, the next stage is constructing the sentences. First up, let's discuss some basic principles regarding effective sentence construction. One, we should avoid redundancy and unnecessary repetition of words. For example, the sentence, please endorse your name at the back of this check, can be better written as, please endorse this check. It means the same thing. We must assemble together at 5:30 a.m. in the morning is much better written as, we must assemble at 5:30 a.m. A clear case of redundancy, as we discussed in the section on word selection. You always assemble together, and 5:30 a.m. is obviously in the morning. So we can only say we must assemble at 5:30 a.m. One should know the basic fundamentals of clear writing. One should know the fundamentals of clear writing. Redundancy yet again. Next point, we should avoid ambiguous sentences. Ambiguity makes your sentence unclear to the reader or the audience. For example, if you say, the delay in transit nearly drove the manager frantic. A better way to say is, the delay in transit drove the manager nearly frantic, because nearly drove is an ambiguous phrase here, while a better phrase and clearer phrase would be driving the manager nearly frantic. As when we say nearly frantic, we imply that the manager was driven not totally frantic but nearly frantic. On the other hand, nearly drove does not have a clear meaning, just like this one. Number 2, he noticed a large stain in the rug that was right in the center. Again, it is an ambiguous sentence because it is not clear whether the rug is in the center or is the stain in the center. Better put as, he noticed a large stain in the center of the rug. Number 3, you can call your father in Delhi and tell him about Srimanth taking you out for dinner for just ₹20. Now in this sentence, it is not clear whether you can call your father for ₹20, like on a phone, or did you go out for a dinner and the dinner cost ₹20. So a better way to say is that for just ₹20, you can call your father in Delhi and tell him about Srimanth taking you out for dinner. Another principle for effective sentence construction is avoiding the use of camouflaged verbs. Now, what are camouflaged verbs? A camouflaged verb is a verb that has been unnecessarily or needlessly transformed into a noun. Camouflaged verbs increase sentence length, slow readers' comprehension because they are abstract and thus difficult for the receiver to envision. Take an example. Confirmation of the date will be received from the president. In this sentence, confirmation is a noun. However, if you look at it closely, it is more like a verb, confirm. It is a powerful verb, but it is camouflaged as a noun just by adding the suffix Asian. So a better way to say the same idea is the president will confirm the date. However, the tendency is to change the verb confirm into a noun and hence make it a camouflaged verb. So confirmation of the date is an unnecessary phrase. It elongates the sentence and it complicates the meaning of the sentence. The president will confirm the date is much better. Similarly, cancellation of the flight to Los Angeles was necessary because of icing conditions. The flight to LA was cancelled because of icing conditions. So cancellation again is a camouflaged verb. It's actually a noun, but it's the verb cancel camouflaged. Lastly, the management team has been directed to identify a plan to create a reduction in shipping costs by 20% versus the management team has been directed to identify a plan to reduce shipping costs. So there is generally a tendency to convert verbs into nouns unnecessarily and hence make them camouflaged verbs, which is generally not a good idea because it only makes your sentence and the meaning of that sentence more complicated. Let's look at some rules that we could follow to construct effective sentences. Number one, short sentences are generally better than very long sentences. However, if you put too many short sentences together, it gives a very choppy effect. A good mix of short and long sentences generally conveys the meaning more crisply. Also, have one single idea in a sentence. A sentence should not have multiple ideas put together. That is one reason why long sentences often cause confusion, because sometimes people put multiple ideas in the same sentence, which is never a good thing. Sometimes, of course, long sentences are required and there is one idea that you need to elaborate and that has to be put in one sentence. So those kinds of long sentences might be unavoidable, but largely it is ideal to keep your sentence length to a medium size, not very long and not very short too. Of course, once in a while a short sentence is very good, but too many short sentences, as we discussed earlier, will be choppy. For example, if you're writing a write-up on life and you write life is good and life is tough, it should be lived well. So too many short sentences is too many full stops, not a very good idea. You can combine this to form medium length sentences, which would be better. So here on the left side, we see a needlessly overlong sentence. Yes, you may not believe this, but this is actually one sentence. Now this sentence is very tough to understand. I'll suggest you to probably pause the video here and try and read the whole sentence. It is a bit tough to understand the meaning that they're trying to convey here. On the right, I made 3 sentences, 2 medium length ones and 1 a little longer, but that conveys the meaning that is implied in this long sentence in a much better manner. So in that sense, guys, an overlong, extremely long sentence is never a good idea. It is better to have multiple sentences, shorter or medium length, that can convey the message in a more effective manner. Lastly, sentences should be presented logically, which also brings us to the last phase, which is connecting the sentences. We must present sentences logically one after the other so that the meaning is projected in a reasonable and logical manner. Also, we must juxtapose, which means put together different sentences only if we are extremely sure about the relationship of the two ideas these two sentences bring. For example, if we write these two sentences together, A, Sahil's performance has fallen. B, he has bought a new car. Many people might assume that Sahil's performance has fallen and hence he has bought a new car, which would be wrong. Hence, we must make sure to put sentences together when they have related ideas. So that was about sentences. In the next video, we discuss how to get our paragraphs right. I hope you all enjoy this programmer's joke, which explains why we must have our sentences unambiguous and logical. See you then.